Hello everybody, and welcome to Introduction to Video Editing Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. So this is our ongoing series of workshops now that we're really looking at introducing some of the software that we're using, how to get started, and really, how do you start from nothing? How do you start from scratch? How do you get going? And how do you use the software that we have? So my name is Tom Strnad. Again, thanks for joining us. This is one of our workshops from the Creator Space. And I want to start off by thanking all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, and then we also have our library partners. So we have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So all these libraries, what's great about the partnership is that we have access to video cameras. So we have the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K that's available at the Wasaga Beach Public Library and the Blue Mountains Public Library. And all three libraries have our digital arts computer station. So what you're looking at today, the Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve software, what's great about it, here's another thing, is that it's totally free. You can download the regular version and use it on your computer, your home computer, desktop, laptop. And the other thing is that the studio version is loaded on all our digital arts computer stations. So what are the digital arts computer stations? So each library has a 27-inch iMac, two of them, that are loaded with digital arts software. One of the software pieces being Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve Studio. The studio version versus the free version just lets you have more resolution options. So you can go beyond 4K and work in or beyond Ultra HD and work in 4K and 8K and so on. So and there's some more some of the visual effects features and some of the titles and graphics and things. There's a few more bells and whistles that come in the studio version. So nothing drastically different, but the point is you can get started on your own system and then you can go to the library to finish as well. So what's really great about these, the software and everything is that they're great and easy to use. So what we're going to look at today is, the types of footage, camera footage, offloading from a camera, for example. It could be any camera, but just that idea of offloading footage, hard drives, formats, data management, overview of the software, just how do you get going, starting a project, importing footage, adjusting footage, adding the lookup tables if you're shooting in raw files. Some of this might not be familiar, but by the end of this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So don't worry. Naming and organizing footage into bins, ready to edit, saving the project. We'll have some time for a Q&A. Now, what we're going to look at today too is also where can you save locally? So what we want to do is introduce the idea that if you're going to the library, you're bringing your stuff, what we really want to recommend is we have external drives that you can use. And it's really a public external drive. So we recognize that most of our creator space users and the digital artists that are using that will benefit from that external drive. But there's no guaranteeing that if you put your video footage on that it will stay there, because someone could erase it just by accident. Someone could move it into a different folder. You might not be able to find it. So you can end up with problems. So what we highly recommend is if you're going to have a long-term project that's beyond, you need to just go in for a day or a few hours to do a short edit. If you're going to have a larger film you're working on over, let's say, weeks, months even, then what we really recommend is getting some sort of an external hard drive. Now, there's a variety of them. You can spend about $80 to, a few $100s, and we'll talk about that. But the external hard drive is great because if you set that up, you can link to all your footage onto the computer. So if you go to library, you can use it that way. And then you can also have your project directly on there and save that way. And you can really work everything externally. So that's something that we encourage if you're going to be using the computer. If you're using your own computer, then it's just a little bit about some of the hard drive safety aspects that we're going to talk about and data management. And that's really important. Might sound kind of boring, like, oh, I don't want to talk about hard drives and data management. They're really crucial to, performing well and being able to edit and to not have any hiccups in the entire process. So it's really, really important. Okay, so let's continue on here. So let's look at the types of footage. So really footage consists of the following main types. So you have your original video files that can be from cameras, photos, graphics, and audio. So I just did a breakdown here of what some of the main types of files that you could be looking at in what you're getting. Generally, what you're mainly working with is those original video files, and that's from a camera. Now the cameras can also be, whether it's a Blackmagic Pocket camera that you took from the library, it could be a phone, and just let's remember that too. If you have stuff on your phone, then you can simply link to a cloud access point. So let's say you're on the Mac, you can log into your Apple ID and then all of your footage would show up because it would all be in that Apple Cloud if you have things saved that way. You can also email the footage out to yourself, like to an email, so you can, like export, send to, share to, and get it off that way. So we really encourage that, an iPhone, for example, is a great camera, and you could be doing it that way as well. So you just need to get that footage onto the system in whatever ways required. That's the main kind of footage. Photos can just be, a photo that you're importing. Graphics could be, logos, illustrations, if you're working on something. And then audio, you'll have things like, music, different songs. You might have some sound effects as well. So those are kind of those options of what might be out there. Okay, so offloading camera. So the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So the Pocket 4K uses two types of cards within the camera. So there's an SD card and there's a CFast 2.0 card. So what does this exactly mean? It's not too complicated, but it's basically there's two types of cards that you'll find on the camera. So one of them is going to be, this is the CFast 2.0 card. So it looks kind of like a compact flash card, but it is called a CFast 2.0, and that's the type of card that it uses. The other one that you'll see is there's kind of that good old traditional SD card. So the Blackmagic camera will have both of these. So on an iMac, digital edge computer stations, you'll simply put the SD card into the back where there is an SD card reader, and with the CFast 2.0 card, there's an external reader. You're going to put it into the reader and hook it up into a USB port onto the computer. So it's a pretty straightforward process, and that's really important because that's how you're going to get to be able to offload footage right away, to be able to do it that way. So what does that adapter look like? Just going to grab an adapter right here to show you guys. So the adapter is going to look like this. So you're going to have this kind of adapter, the CFast 2.0 card, just like that, USB or USB-C cable and port into the back of the iMac, and then you're going to be able to offload. Now what happens is these will just show up just like any kind of a hard drive. So I can I'll demonstrate what that looks like as we look at this right now. So for example, hard drives, we'll get into that right after. So let me just switch over here. So if you're bringing something in to the desktop here, so let's look at this. So here's a couple drives I have. This is just my desktop, and so now I'm going to do is I'm going to put the SD card into the card slot, and what's going to happen is it's going to show up. So you can see it's right here, this card down here, and on that, if there is footage, I don't have any footage on that for now, but let's say there is footage. So what would that look like? Let me just grab some footage and we can just I should have something here. Narrative editing. Okay, so let's just say there's a piece of footage. So this is what it's going to look like. It's going to usually have some sort of numbering like this, A008, and then that's like the date of a date and time roughly there. So that's clip 1. So here would be the first, here's some footage, and that's what it would look like. So that's directly on the SD card, right? So it's going to just show up, comes up on your iMac or on any desktop you're using, and that's how you would offload footage. The same thing, so if you were to email yourself footage, if you were to take it off an iPhone or hook any kind of a hard drive up, that's how they're going to show up. You're going to have the hard drive and put it on there. So then what do we do next? And that's the fun part, is then we get into some data management. So this is really kind of that housekeeping side of things of, how do you do data management? So, hard drives in the iMac or in the Mac OS world, they need to be formatted as exFAT. It's a universal format, and that you can use on Windows and Mac. So if you can use both. If you're only using Mac, you can use the Mac format, a hard drive only version. So so just be aware of that. If you're going to be using it, let's say you have a Windows computer and you're going to be bringing it to the library to use the Mac computer, you're going to want to have exFAT so that you can use both the hard drive in both computer systems, the operating system. So the Windows drive you can still read it. At NTFS, you'll be able to read it in a Mac and at the library, but you won't be able to write to it. To be able to read it, you can copy off of it generally. There are some formats that might not, but to be safe, if you put everything in exFAT, work in that, you can work on both types of operating systems all around the world, all around the library to your home and so on. If you're just using a Mac and you're going to want to come to the library to use the Mac, then you can just stay all Mac formatted. So that's what I like to say. So I recommend using labeling everything and making sure that you have the date, if there's A or B camera. So if you had a couple of cameras, you want to log everything. And then here's a really important point: back up all your footage to at least 2 different locations. So this means it should be on a local drive where you're editing, and then there should be a backup external drive. Now, why do we want to back up to at least 2 locations? So imagine this: you're working on your computer, there's something goes wrong with your hard drive, you've copied it off of these cards, you've reformatted that, there's other footage already on this card, for example. Then your footage just exists on that one hard drive. That hard drive, something happens to it. It gets corrupted, there's a data issue with it, and you lose all your video footage. So that drive failed, and that's it. It's gone. All your footage is gone. Now, if you saved it on a local drive, or let's say you're using the external drives at the library computers, and then you've also saved it onto another external drive here. Now, if that one fails, I now have the backup here. So I can restore all the footage and it's here. And at that point, if that one's failed and now it only exists on one, I immediately would make another copy of this footage and put it onto another drive. So that could be putting it back onto a new local drive, so it exists again in 2 spots. And that way you're always really safe. The probability of both drives failing independently of each other, being external, internal, or 2 external drives that aren't related to one another or not in the same enclosure, is very, very rare. So for that to happen. If you're really concerned something super, super important, it doesn't hurt to even have it on another external drive. Maybe it's an external drive that you're going to keep, kind of in a safe box, or keep it somewhere, kind of safe. Doesn't travel. So you might have one that you just put like on a, on your bookshelf, and it stays there. It doesn't travel with your most important footage. So just think of the importance. At a minimum, too, if it's super important and rare, and maybe you'll never be able to get that kind of an interview again, or get that kind of footage, or it was really expensive to film that footage, you're going to want to have potentially even on 3. So I'm usually looking at that too. If there's something that's a unique event, or it was a really expensive filming day, editorially I want to have 2 backups plus my working drive, so it would be on 3, because I don't want to have anything happen to it, and in case during the editing something happens. So that's really key. Is data management can be really, really important to get things going, and to be safe, to protect all your footage. Okay, types of media. This is just something you're going to get these kinds of out there. There's going to be this codec and wrapper file, right? And just to make it really simple, the main thing to remember is that generally like a few types that you're going to be seeing out there. So there's an MPEG-4, MP4, and generally now most of the footage is using an H.264 codec. Then there's also QuickTime files, and those are MOV files, and that could be using an H.264 codec, or you can also use something called Apple ProRes. Now, QuickTime files generally are now more used on Mac systems. With Windows, there isn't a new QuickTime update, so a lot of people won't use QuickTime because of potential security issues on a Windows computer. So QuickTime player won't be able to be installed, and so that can be an issue. So if you're going to be using Windows and Mac systems, you want to be using that MP4 format versus the MOV. Generally out there, I like using the MOV format, and it's still, really the professional standard in terms of deliveries. I'm always doing everything in MOV finals for broadcasters or film festivals, or just internally, externally with clients. Then there's something called the Blackmagic Raw File. I'm not going to get into this too extensively, but if you go to our website, you can catch up on some of the cinematography workshops that we have, and we do one totally on color grading and Blackmagic Raw footage, and we do comparisons of what it's like to use Blackmagic Raw. And that's the Blackmagic Raw. That's what you could use if you're using the Blackmagic Pocket 4K camera and you shoot in a 4K RAW. And that gives you the most, it's the smallest file size. It has like a lossless compression type style to it, and it allows you to do changes. So it's truly like a negative, super negative, that you can do, you know, kind of wizardry to it in terms of being able to change its exposure and color profiles in editing. But again, I really encourage you. We're going to be posting it on YouTube now, our 4-part color grading cinematography workshop that we just finished in August. Okay, so Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. Let's get right into the software now. So this is a free non-linear editing software. That's what NLE stands for. And it's totally free, so you can just go to blackmagic.ca, I believe it is. And you know, it has amazing color grading. Basically, most Hollywood films, TV shows, music videos use Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve for color grading. And the nice thing is that they've, you know, incorporated full editorial into it, so you can do editing, sound, effects through Fusion, which is like a kind of a super version of After Effects. So it's all built into this one piece of software that's free, or you can use the studio version that's a few $100s, but available to use at the library partners. So that's the really great thing. So the software we're demonstrating is totally free for you to access, so you don't have to, you know, spend any money or do any kind of monthly fee. So that's why we're using this, and it's a great piece of software. And again, industry standard for color grading, and slowly making its way in through you know, use for editorial as well. I've been using it a lot just for editorial, for ease of use, to go from editing to color grading, and you know, it's been great. So if any of you out there have used Avid Media Composer or Premiere, you can jump on this very, very, very quickly, and you'll see. Okay, so I actually have a little graphic up here still. It says DaVinci Resolve 16. We're now in 17, so we'll be demoing in 17. So importing footage, starting a project, and importing. So let's give let's look at this. Let's do a demo of, you know, how to start the project, importing. I'm going to talk us through in terms of you know, an external drive use, and just some options as we go through that. So let me just switch over from the Google presentation to. Let's go back to the desktop here. So I'm going to start this up just so you guys can see what it's going to look like. So here it is. Down here, I'm just going to zoom over here. So on the launch pad here, I'm going to go to DaVinci Resolve. It's going to be this little icon. Click it once in the Mac, and you can see it shows up here, DaVinci Resolve Studio 17. That's what we're demoing with. It's probably going to give me an upgrade notice. Don't worry about that. We keep everything upgraded in the libraries. It just takes, you know, sometimes a few weeks just to do the rounds to get everything updated. So you can ignore any kind of upgrade prompts that it's asking to do. Now what you're going to see, this is called the home project folder, and this gives you, the first time you're using it, if you've loaded it, the first time you're using it, you're going to just see no other projects. As you can see, I have a bunch of different projects here. So this is great, because then you can get an idea of what it will look like once you populate it with different projects. So what I can do here is I have two databases. So I have Tom projects, and what you can do is you can create different databases. So let's just have a information here. It's going to tell me where it is. So here, this is in my external drive, and it's called Tom Resolve Projects, right? And then the original one, local database, is just in like in my like user library application, and same with this one. There's like another projects one. So this is, if you want to really be kind of the next advanced area, what I wanted to show is if you're going to kind of want to clean things up, you can just use a local database, and that's going to just save it onto the local user database. But what you can do is we can actually say, hey, let's create a new one. So let's look at how that can work. I'm going to go down here where it says new database. I'm going to say new database, and it's going to be disk based, and I'm going to say, okay, creator space. Okay, that could just be your name. The next thing what's important is we're going to go to browse. I'm going to hit browse, and I can decide where it's going to be. So I can say, okay, this is my external drive, And I'm going to say, okay, let's go here. Okay, and what I'll do is I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to say, I really want this to be clear. So creator space resolve projects, create, and that's where it's going to be. And that's it. So you just go open, and that's where it's going to live now. So that creator space folder is going to be right there. So I'm just going to hit create, and what it's going to do is it's going to create this. It just takes a moment, and you can see now creator space is right here, totally blank, and it exists on that external drive. So this is the really cool thing, and that's why I wanted to demo this, is that you can then create your own folder in the external drive. It's right here, and you can see it's creator space resolve projects. It's all here, and all the projects are going to be right here. Users, and so on. And that's it. I haven't created a project yet, so that's just where it's going to be when it's ready to go. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is, Untitled project is just how we can start. So I'm going to double click on that. Okay, and then I'm going to go to File, and this is how we start to bring footage in. So we simply go File, Import Media. I'm going to find some media from a creator space project. So let's say narrative editing. Okay, and what I can do here is I can just hit Command to select if I want all of them. I can hit 1 and then hit this one, and one at a time, or I can hit the first one, hit Shift, click on that, it's going to select them all. Then you go Open. Now it's going to give you this information slide here. The selected clips have a different frame rate to the project. Would you like to change your timeline frame rate to match? And yes. So I always want it to match what I shot it in the frame rates. So I go Change. Now we've imported everything. Now on the bottom here, we have a few tabs. So we have Media, Cut, Edit, Fusion, which is our effects tab, Color, which is our color grading, Fairlight, which is our sound editing and mixing, and Deliver for our exporting. So to edit, we eventually want to be at Edit. So I always like to go to Media and import everything that way. So now what I can do is I can double click on this, and I'm going to get each shot's going to show up in the footage. And that's beautiful. That's exactly what we wanted to do. So that's how simple it is just to bring in your footage. So how do we do that again? So we go to File, Import, Media, find your footage, simply click on it, hit Open, and it brings it in. It's already in, so it's not going to do it again. And that's it. Then we are ready to go. So at this point, what I would also do is potentially, label everything. So there's different information here. And, you can hear the sound there of the takes, right? So this is 2B1. So, this is where you can get into the data management and labeling everything. So I can say 2B take 1. And that lets me start to identify what everything is, right? So you can just go in there and identify everything. So that's kind of the process of getting things going. So now what I like to do is I like to go right into the edit. The cut is a really cool page where you can get into kind of speed editing and getting everything done in a faster method. But I'm going to take you guys through to the editing. So within the editing, the next thing that we need to do is understand how these windows work. So every time I click on something, it's going to just show up here, shot by shot into this window here. Okay. And you can expand these, however you like. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, first thing is first, is I'm going to save the project as, and I want to call it something. So I'm going to say creator space editing demo. And now that's important. So you'll see at the top, instead of it saying untitled, it now says creator space editing demo. So that's how we save. Now from now on, I can just go Command S. Command S, it's going to just save as I go. It also default, I believe it's every 10 minutes now, it just does a backup save. So as you're working, it's going to force save it. So you won't lose a significant amount of work in case your power went out or something happened. So it's constantly backing up, which is really great. Okay, so to edit, what we now need are, there's something that we need in editing. So we have our footage, so we have our footage files. Then what we need is a timeline. And the timeline is where we take the footage, we decide how much of it we want, the in and out points, and then we put it into a timeline. And that's the essence of editing, is basically taking footage, reviewing it, figuring out what part of the footage we want. There might be multiple spots of the footage that we want. Then we put it into a timeline. The timeline is our edited new video file, if you will. So that's taking multiple shots in a timeline, and then you play them back, and that becomes your edited sequence. And that's the essence of editing. So the next thing I like to do then is we can then, under this master thing, I just want to go, look, if I go right click, I'm going to go new bin. And I like to say, you know, let's create something cuts. And we can also, let's do one more here. Footage day 1. So I'm going to take all of this footage, click on it, and shift to highlight it all. I'm going to drag it, put it into footage day 1. So bins are traditionally from way back with film editing, and there is still film editing, but you'd have bins where all your footage would be hanging. So that's why we use the word bins instead of folders when it comes to editing. So that comes from an older term of actually having the bins. So bins are where you want to organize all your footage. So footage day 1, day 2, or types of footage. So outside shots, inside shots, tree shots, flower shots, whatever it is. Organize your stuff into these bins so you can easily find it. You don't want to have a million shots in a bin. You want to have, you know, a couple dozen, organize it by what makes sense. And the more organized it can be, you can have bins within bins, so you can see how it can keep getting really, really well organized. And that's really a key in your editing success. So under cuts, I'm going to go here, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say create new timeline. It's also under Command N, create new timeline. And I'm just going to say demo edit. And it's going to just give me one video track, one audio track. That's fine. And we're going to create. Now you can see I have video 1, audio 1 here. And it's going to match up to the footage. So if I take my footage right here, you can see if this is red, this is basically linking my footage and saying, hey, footage, you're going to go in here. Video and audio, you're going to go in here. If you turn these off, you're telling it to only do one or the other, or none. Okay, so now I'm going to take my shot and say, okay, I just want a specific part of this. Okay, let's get another shot here. Okay, that's nice. And now there's a few ways. So what I've done here is, as I've played it, I've marked it with an I for in and an O for out. You can also do it down here, mark in, mark out. So editing is all about creating these in and out points, and it's what we call a 3-point edit. Point 1 is the in, point 2 is the out, and then you're bringing the shot into the sequence, and wherever this cursor is your third point. So let's open the shot up, and then what we can do is under the marks you can also clear them. So it's Option X will clear them. So Option X, that clears them. Okay, so let's do this again. So spacebar to play. The I there for the in. And an O for the out. And that you can do as you're watching. So that's your in and out. And now you have a few options. So I can take this, I can drag it down and bring it down like that. I'm going to do Command Z to undo. The other way I can do it is I can go over here. There's a couple commands. So I have an overwrite and I have an insert. And this can go right from here. And there's also a quick command. So it's F9 and F10. So you can have it you can start to use these quick commands as well. And now it's on the sequence. right? So it's right there. So I'm just go boop. Okay, and now at the end, this cursor now is at the next point, and that's, again, my point 3. That's where it's going to do the edit. Now let's find like another shot. Okay, I'm going to go I. Okay, and an O there. And again, I'm going to then take this and I'm going to just use the overwrite. So the overwrite is basically taking the clip and putting it on whatever there is on the sequence. Then insert is putting it in between two shots, for example. So let's look at that next. How do we do an insert edit? So let's say I want to go right here. Right, so in between the two shots here. And let's say I want to put this shot in between. So again, I'm going to go I for in. And an O. And now, watch the difference here. As I insert, it's going to split it and put it in between the two shots. Command Z to undo. And an overwrite is going to put it on top of it, so it destroys what's underneath it. That's really the main differences in the two editing things, is again the insert or the overwrite. And then you just keep going. And this is how we keep editing. So I'm going to insert that, and that's it. And now let's play this back. Okay. So we've basically done an edit. We've taken 3 shots, we've imported the shots, we've taken the 3 shots, and we've laid them back to back. So now, what's fun is with editing, we can take these, and I can move these around. I can change the order. I can start with that. Go to the car and go in here. You can see the right order is, kind of, we probably want to go car to entering the building to going to the desk. Right? So that would be that's the right order. And you can see that's really editing, is figuring out what the right order is if you're not sure. So, from car to coming inside, to walking here. Now here's something interesting. So let's say I want to do a little bit of editing. So now I can, trimming. So I can click on this side, and I can then use the comma and period, which are arrow keys, to reduce the frames, take them away. So you can see I just took off 3 frames, and then I can squish that back together. And that's called trimming. So you can trim, you can expand, you can contract it. And those are your trimming tools. I can also do rolling, which is just adding more to the end of one shot and taking away the beginning of the other shot. Now the big difference between these two types is that in trimming, you're taking frames, you're adding frames, you're changing the overall length of the sequence. When I do this double roller, I'm not adjusting or affecting the overall length of the sequence. So that's really a great tool, because then I can just do some fine tuning in terms of where each shot starts and stops. Some other terminology that you'll start hearing more as you're editing is there's the head and the tail. So the head refers to the beginning of the shot, the tail refers to the end of the shot. And then from one shot to the other, you're going from the tail to the head. So tail, the end of one shot, head of the other shot, and then you can trim one or the other. So sometimes you'll want to be able to note that and say, hey, I want to trim 5 frames from the tail of the shot. So you can literally just use your comma and period to trim 5 frames, for example. And that's all there is to editing, is just to take your marking footage, figure out what parts of the footage you want, and you're editing it down. So the idea is we can take something that could be hours and we can edit it down to minutes or even seconds. And so we're editing down what is our raw original footage. It can be very long, and trying to put it together into telling some sort of a story. So that some sort of a sequence, some sort of an ordering, and some sort of a structure that helps tell a specific story, or allows for an interview, for example, to be cut together, to be shown through. So that's our essence of editing. Okay, so those are our main tools. So we've imported, we've created a timeline, we're editing the sequence, and we just keep going from there. And the character looks like he forgot something, and book, and he comes back to the car. So that could be potentially what we put as our fourth shot right there. So you can see I just keep building it. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 shots now, and my sequence continues to expand from there. And that is all of our essence of editing. So I'm just gonna pull up just some of these points just to go over this again. So organizing your footage. So you want to use those bins so you can organize all your footage into different bins. So each bin can represent different days and footage types. So naming can really help. So short descriptions, scene numbers. If you don't have scene numbers, for example, if it's not a narrative film, if you don't have scene numbers, you might just want short descriptions. So you might want stuff that's just, shot of flower, shot of coffee, shot of leaves on ground. You can write out short descriptions. That's going to help you find everything, because the last thing you want to do is make things not easy for your editing. You want it to be easy, smooth, and organized. So the more time you can spend organizing, the more successful you will be in doing your overall editing. So here's one more thing too. So adding LUTs. So these are called lookup tables, and this is color grading. So if you're using something like the Blackmagic Raw that's using a film mode, what that means is it's in like a raw mode. So it doesn't have any color information. So it looks kind of flat. And a lot of times you might need to add these lookup tables. So I'd like to always introduce this concept. And again, it's a little bit more advanced, but it's just something that you might want to do if you're using one of the Blackmagic cinema cameras and you really need to showcase figure out how to add a LUT. So it's a nice thing to be able to do. So I'm just going to go back to the footage here. So what does this look like? So you can see these look like just flat right now. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to LUT. Oops, I'm not on the right screen. So these are looking flat right now. So I'm just back into the footage here. Right click, open up any shot. I'm going to right click, go to LUT, which is the lookup table. Then I'm going to go to Blackmagic Design, and I'm going to go to Generation 5 Film to Extended Video. And this was actually an older project that we did. So it's either going to be that, the Generation 5, or you can try the Pocket 4K Film to Extended Video. And you can see what it's done is just add a little bit of contrast and a little bit of more color to it. So it takes it out of that raw flat mode into the lookup table. And again, you can select all of these with Shift, right click, lookup table, Blackmagic Design, Pocket 4K to Extended, and it's going to reapply it into our edit. So there's nothing, you don't have to redo your editing. It's going to change it all there. And that's how you can apply the lookup table. So once again, you go to any shot here that you have in the raw mode. I go over here, you can see there's a check mark now. So I can also turn that off if I want to get rid of the lookup table. You might want to keep it flat looking and work on it differently. So again, there's always different options. But if you want to get through something a little bit faster and just kind of get the editing going and have a bit of a base color grade, that's a great way to start it up and get things going. And that works quite well. And getting the lookup table, getting that the essence of what you shot into representing it properly in terms of what it should look like. Okay, so then once you're ready to edit, again, I want to always reiterate that you want to save your project, and then this could be, you might have one day of footage that came in. Maybe you're filming for 10 days. So you want to keep organizing that footage. As new footage comes in, keep organizing, keep it, clear, organized, naming it, and making sure that you know where it is and so you can find it. So that's really important. Make the name of your project something that you can recognize, right? So if it's still making an obscure name, you want to really name it what it is. And the other thing that you can do in editing is you can keep saving new project variations. So, if you did kind of one version and then that's that, and maybe you're going back and you're going to do something really drastic, go into like a revision A, like call it something else, the entire project, and that way you can kind of keep them separate. So that's something to think about too. You can organize, you can save your projects, daily, call them each day of the week, and kind of keep backing it up that way too. So there's numerous ways you can continue to back up and save, your information and keeping it going in that manner. So that really takes us through the editorial concepts. What I wanted to show still is the actual how do we get to export. So let's say I finished doing this and we did the lookup table, and again, there's tons of things to look at beyond this, but this is getting you started, getting that footage in there, opening the project, starting a project, opening the software, starting a project, getting footage in there, organizing your footage, putting it into a timeline, and to start editing. So again, you're moving things along. You can go in here just with these simple tools like this, and I can just make things shorter or longer. And then I can grab these, I can drag them closer to get rid of any kind of spaces in between. And that's as simple as your editing can be. And I can use the roller to change the in and outs. And what's important is you can see what it does here on the top. It goes into the dual screen. So it's showing me the end and the beginning of the next shot. So I can kind of see what I'm doing, how it's affecting it. So you're not guessing. You can really see the cause and effect of your editorial change in that instance, right? So if this, maybe I want him to be out of the frame here, and here he's just about to open the door. So you can really see real time what we're doing. Up here, we have the zoom in and out. So that's just if you want to zoom in or out to your overall sequence. So you can get really in there up to like a frame detail. So again, the space bar will let you play, and then the directional keys, you can go frame by frame. So I'm just using the arrow left, right to go backwards and forwards. So you can really find spots. And on the 3-point editing, let's say I really wanted to put in one more piece of something, here, let's say, in, out, like that. And, I'm trying to figure out kind of a spot here that I want to do it. I can also so I have my in and out of the shot right here. And down here, I can say, okay, make an in here as well. So that's truly the 3-point edit where I can say, okay, let's go here, here, there. And I'm going to overwrite just to put a shot of him leaving from inside the car, for example, if you wanted to add that in. So that's the beauty of how you can keep layering and adding things as you edit. So now let's say I've finished that. I have a few shots together. I want to get this out. So what I can do is I go to the deliver, that rocket ship there at the bottom, go to deliver, and then I just decide what it's going to be. So you have all these presets, YouTube, Vimeo, Twitter, and there's like ProRes, and then you can go to H.264 and so on. So let's say I want it to go to, let's say, a Vimeo page. I'm going to put it on, and I can just say demo edit. Here's the resolution, and I can say add to render queue. It's going to ask me where do I want it. So I'm going to say, hey, put it in the master class here. I'll just save it right there. Okay. And then I'm going to go on this. I'm going to say render all, and it's going to render the sequence out. So no one can watch this outside of the Resolve project until you've exported it and rendered it. I think that's really important, that you always need to render these out, which is basically creating a new video with all these video clips. So you've taken video clips, you've imported them, you edit them, then you need to export them out. And that's the whole round of editing and what's required. So what does that look like? So now in terms of the, where it is, so let's look it up here. It's going to be here, master class. Oh, that's not it. narrative editing, demo edit, and it's right here. So now I can watch it in QuickTime, and you can see it looks beautiful. That's the full screen of it.
Man, I can't believe this. I forgot. He's forgetting something.
Okay, and that's the whole sequence there, played back and edited together. So that's really that's what's required to get your editing going, and then you're basically ready to edit when you have that. So if there's any Q&A, I'm gonna just put my email up here too, because I know we're just getting to the end here. So you can always email me, tom@tbmcs.ca. If you have any questions about this, any questions about equipment, video, the cameras, getting stuff going, and also if you go to our website, so tbmcs.ca, the creator space, the Blue Mountains creatorspace.ca, or tbmcs.ca, you can go and you'll find our YouTube channel with all the different videos from the prior workshops, and really specific ones. So if you're like, hey, I want to jump into this, I'm going to get editing, and you want more, we encourage you to keep going that way and to explore more about this software. So it's a really great piece of software, and it's really exciting to use. And all you need to do, again, just download it. We have that on our website too. How do you install the software? It's there. Again, we don't want to take too much time in explaining that stuff. You can go and watch that video, download it, install it, and then you can get going. So you just open the software up, create a project, decide if you want to put on an external drive or if you're just going to have it locally, import the footage and create a timeline, edit the footage in, export it, and that's as simple as it can be. And then it gets more and more complex from there. So you can get into more color grading, get into some visual effects, you can get into multiple layers of video time in your timeline, and you just keep layering from there. But this is the key. Get started, get editing. You can start to tell the stories. You can trim things down. I showed you with those quick trim tools there, the roller, the individual header tail trimming, and just making sure there's no spaces in between the shots. Line them all up together, and then you've created beautiful editing magic. So that's really the beauty, the beauty of working and editing, and then getting it done and then it's exported. So just want to thank all our partners, in this project, and Canada Council for the Arts, and our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library, and and getting started on any editing. Feel free, send me an email, like I said, and you can keep going from there. And the other thing too is, if you're looking for computers to use, please use the digital arts computers at our library partners. Really excited that you can have the iMac 27-inch access there, fully loaded with Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve computers. So please do check those out and use those as you can. So again, thanks for joining us. And this will be up again, so you can check this out. It will be up on our YouTube channel, and you can rewatch this. So if you want to go over any of these steps, you can watch it directly from this link. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you guys again soon. Take care.